I was so proud at that family dinner, finally accepted at the company of my dreams. My mom, Greta, looked down at me and, "Sable? At that company? What a joke!" She laughed nonstop in front of the entire family. But 3 weeks later, when my boss, Alec, opened the general meeting live, her silence when he said my name was worth more than everything she ever took from me. Before we dive deeper into those 3 weeks that changed everything, one thing matters. These stories are written with intention, not created at random. There is a human presence behind every word you hear. I wrote those words months after it all happened, when the noise finally faded into memory. Back then, I didn't know that intention could rewrite entire bloodlines. But that night, at that dinner table, intention was born from humiliation. Every detail still lives in my senses. The glass clinking, the smell of rosemary and self-importance, the tremor in my own pulse. My voice had barely finished sharing the words. I got the job at Technova, before Greta's laughter claimed the air. It was loud enough to make even the chandelier seem to shiver. The room still smelled like roasted chicken and champagne when her voice sliced through it like cold metal. Greta sat at the head of the table, her wine glass tilted just enough for the chandelier's reflection to dance across her rings. My aunt stopped mid-bite. My cousin smirked, waiting for another punchline. I smiled faintly, feeling my pulse thud against my neck. I had imagined that dinner differently, a quiet nod, a proud smile, maybe just an ounce of maternal warmth after years of invisible effort. But Greta lived for scenes, and I had become her favorite stage. Her laughter wasn't just noise, it was a verdict, and I was found foolish for daring to rise. When she said Technova, her tone dripped with disbelief so heavy it almost drowned me. "The company of your dreams?" she repeated, tasting the words like something expired. "You? Working there?" She leaned back, smiling with her teeth. The picture of affluent cruelty. My uncles laughed nervously, unsure if it was safe to join her mockery. It had always been this way. My accomplishments treated as comic relief between sips of expensive wine. But that night, something inside me didn't shatter. It rearranged. I held her gaze, saying nothing. The silence that followed her laughter wasn't weakness anymore. It was a boundary finally being built, stone by silent stone. After the dinner ended, her laughter followed me out through the hallway like a phantom. I walked to my car under the gold porch light she loved, hearing her voice replay, mockery dressed as advice. "Don't embarrass yourself, Sable. That world isn't made for people like you." Maybe she was right once, but not anymore. The next morning, I woke before the city did, pressing my new badge against my palm like proof of evolution. Technova's logo shimmered, a silver arc over navy blue, sharp and unfinished, like ambition itself. Stepping into that building for the first time felt like walking into the version of myself I had been designing in secret. The air inside Technova was pure precision. Steel, glass, and citrus cleaning spray. My heels clicked lightly across marble floors that seemed to judge sound. I carried a notebook filled with meticulous notes, sketches, and systems I'd been building for years, not for anyone else's validation, but for the version of me no one believed existed. My desk overlooked the city. From there, Brasilia looked smaller, almost manageable. I studied everyone, their pace, their tone, the invisible hierarchies coded into their posture. Every laugh, every silence meant something here. It was a new kind of chessboard, and I intended to win by learning before speaking. During that first week, the hum of servers became my background music. I stayed late, listening to the quiet chatter of engineers and the faint sound of elevators sighing through the building. I thought about Greta then, how she slept early, believing she had already peaked in life. I was her unfinished project, the daughter who refused to remain small. In contrast, Technova pulsed with sleepless ambition. Somewhere on the upper floors, Alec moved like a ghost no one dared disturb. People lowered their voices when they mentioned his name. I wanted to know why, not out of admiration, out of calculation. By day 7, I had started reading between silences. Alec's communication style fascinated me. One-word directives during meetings, yet entire philosophies implied. I began integrating unnoticed systems improvements, data pathways, automation loops, that increased reporting speed by 15%. No one mentioned it, but someone had to notice eventually. Meanwhile, I ignored every family group message, every notification tagged with my name. I knew they were all talking about that dinner. To them, my humiliation was viral entertainment. To me, it was fuel. Quietly, I started saving screenshots. The first evidence of how narratives mutate once they leave your control. Evidence that someday, silence would speak louder than spectacle. By day 12, whispers reached me. Someone in the office cafeteria muttered, "Wait, wasn't that the girl from the dinner video?" My body froze before my mind caught up. I saw my own face reflected on her phone screen, me, steady and composed, Greta laughing until her eyes watered. The internet had made my private humiliation public. Headlines read, "Mother mocks daughter's job victory," and "Family dinner gone wrong." The clip had amassed millions of views. My heart sank, but my expression didn't change. I kept eating. In silence, I built a firewall between emotion and action, between Sable the daughter and Sable the professional. I would decide when the world learned the difference. That night, back home, I sat in the half-light of my living room, watching the city flicker below. Greta probably saw the same glow through her window and still believed she controlled the narrative. She didn't know that stories evolve on their own. Somewhere, maybe miles away, Alex scrolled through his nightly reports, and through the same internet everyone else did. I imagined his eyes pausing for half a second on that viral clip. If he did, I hoped he looked long enough to notice my silence, not her laughter. Because silence was the language of people who win without noise. It had always been my native tongue. By the beginning of week 2, the rhythm of Technova had become part of my bloodstream. I stopped flinching at the sound of notifications or the steady beat of heels across the glass floors. Each morning greeted me with the same precision: card scan, the mechanical click of the turnstile, and a faint scent of ozone from the climate system. I began to notice details most people overlooked. The way colleagues rearranged posture when Alex's name appeared on screen during organizational briefings. The small tension in conversations whenever initiative or visibility were mentioned. Everything in that building revolved around being seen, and yet I thrived in being unseen. It was ironic. My invisibility, once my curse, had become my weapon. Greta wanted applause. I wanted advantage. Alec, meanwhile, was less a man and more a rumor that walked. He rarely spoke directly to anyone at my level, yet his fingerprints were everywhere. Anonymous evaluation forms carried his comments, short, surgical, often unsettling in their accuracy. Mine appeared for the first time in week 3. Just 2 words: read patterns. I stared at them long after my screen dimmed, trying to decode what he meant. Maybe he'd seen my adjustments to the data flow systems, or the way I integrated cross-team processes silently. At Technova, visibility didn't require speaking. It required alignment, with efficiency, with precision. And Alec valued both beyond loyalty or charm. That terrified people. It steadied me. During the 15th day, Alec appeared in our department for the first time. His entrance carried no announcement, just the soft rhythm of his shoes, and a ripple through the room's natural noise. Conversations paused, half-sentences hung like vapor. He spoke little, only asking our project lead about the new trial protocol. Then his gaze swept the group. I didn't look away, but I didn't seek him either. Still, he stopped when his eyes reached mine. Brief, assessing, an unreadable moment. Recognition without approval. A millisecond that meant nothing to anyone else, but sparked something irrational inside me. Immediately after, our supervisor stammered that my analytics patch had reduced lag by 30%. Alec nodded once. No smile, no praise. Yet for the first time, I felt seen without being paraded or mocked. Greta's laughter no longer echoed. It was drowning under fluorescent lights. The shift after his visit was tangible. Colleagues spoke to me differently, careful, as if my proximity might carry weight. My inbox filled with collaborative invites. By day 18, the viral dinner clip reached internal chat groups. Co-workers whispered, uncertain whether to pity me or applaud my composure. Someone shared a meme comparing Greta's arrogance to Technova's excellence. I read the comments quietly during lunch, watching strangers rewrite the story of my humiliation into something cinematic. The internet had metabolized my pain and turned it into narrative currency. And somewhere above, Alec watched that same internet too. Technova's algorithms spotted trends faster than people could talk. If he saw me anywhere, on camera, in chatter, or in metrics, he would note how I behaved under glare. And I hadn't flinched. Around day 19, I received a calendar invitation. It wasn't from HR or my department. The sender line read, AH, Office 47.7. My heart stuttered. I had no reason to meet him. The description simply said, follow-up, pattern optimization. I spent the evening rehearsing composure before my mirror, catching slight tics I'd never noticed. Every scenario ran through my head. Criticism, reassignment, or worse, polite dismissal. The next morning I entered his office with careful quiet. Floor-to-ceiling glass, reflections merging Brazilia's skyline with screens of cascading code. Alex sat behind minimal decor, a pen, a file, and silence thick enough to be intentional. "Sit," he said, almost an analysis rather than an invitation. He didn't ask questions immediately. Instead, he gestured toward my dashboard reports. "You corrected the system's tracking matrix without approval." I froze, unsure whether to explain or apologize. But his tone wasn't angry, only curious. "You saw inefficiency. You fixed it," he added, leaning back. "Most people override warnings. You watch first." I nodded, unsure if it was safe to speak. That's what I meant by red patterns. His eyes flicked to the side monitor where a muted browser tab displayed what I recognized too late: the dinner video. My breath caught. He rotated the screen slightly toward me. "That you?" My nod was barely perceptible. "Then I suppose you understand how public failure exposes character." His words weren't comfort. They were calibration. That moment stretched infinitely. The video replayed once, Greta's laughter spilling into the sterile light of his office. Alec closed it, face unreadable, and said, "People in our line of work must function while everyone else misinterprets them. If you can do that, you belong here." Then, almost as an afterthought, "There's something poetic about that clip. It shows control." For the first time since the dinner, I didn't feel shame. I felt seen not as a victim, but as a variable. He dismissed me with a short nod. "Keep doing what you're doing," he said, already turning back to his screen. Outside, I exhaled like stepping into new gravity. The humiliation Greta had crafted for pleasure was evolving into my entrance ticket. The next days blurred into achievement. Small teams requested my insight, and Alec began CCing me on department-wide communications. Not praise, strategic inclusion. I understood the signal. Trust measured through exposure. Greta's voice still echoed sometimes, reminding me that wins should be flaunted. But I didn't brag, didn't update social media. I waited. The same silence she once mocked was now refining me like heat-shaped steel. The longer I stayed composed, the more others faltered, trying to decode how I had risen from ridicule to relevance. And every morning, as I passed the mirrored elevator doors, I mouthed one thought like mantra: wait until she sees. By day 21, rumors spread of an upcoming general meeting live. A broadcast tech nova streamed to all divisions. Alec would announce major restructures. Departments buzzed with speculation, names whispered about promotions. I heard mine once, dismissed it quickly, but something electric vibrated beneath the rumor. That same day, an internal alert appeared in Alec's feed about viral brand mentions. The headline carried my name. He didn't deny it. Instead, he reposted the clip internally with a single caption: "We hire for resilience." The message exploded across channels, reshaping perception overnight. Suddenly, I wasn't the girl from the video. I was the embodiment of the company's new ethos. And Greta, sitting somewhere among her circle of gossip friends, would soon realize that her punchline had gone corporate. Wherever you're watching from tonight, drop your city in the comments plus subscribe. The morning after Alec's repost detonated across internal networks, the atmosphere at Technova shifted. People who once avoided eye contact now greeted me with thin smiles, equal parts curiosity and calculation. My name had become shorthand for resilience, the company's living advertisement. Yet inside, I carried the same silence that once protected me. External validation was a bright but burning thing. I spent those hours bracing for Greta's voice. It arrived that evening in the form of 15 missed calls and one message. "We need to talk. Everyone has seen it. Your boss humiliated me, Sable." Her words carried no introspection, only entitlement. She didn't understand that humiliation had finally reversed direction. When I finally answered, her tone dripped with controlled hysteria. "You let him post that clip. My reputation, our family, is suffering. Do you have any idea what people are saying?" I stared at the ceiling of my small apartment, letting the guilt she wielded wash over me without sinking in. "He posted it because of what you did," I said quietly. "People are allowed to see what I lived." There was a pause. "You sound ungrateful," she whispered. "I made sacrifices for you." My laugh came out sharper than expected, and recorded interest ever since. The line went dead shortly after. Silence returned, but it hummed now, taut and alive, like a string ready to sing. By day 25, whispers circulated that Greta planned to visit Technova. She had friends in old circles, funding boards, charity committees, and she knew appearances meant power. I imagined her rehearsing her entrance in some perfume-filled dressing room, crafting phrases like misunderstanding and family matter. The very thought turned my stomach. Still, I told myself it was impossible she'd attempt it. Technova wasn't her world. It operated on results, not performance. But then Friday arrived. Glass doors parted at 11:03 a.m., and there she was, immaculate, overdressed, determined. Greta knew how to command any room, but this wasn't a room. It was an ecosystem wired to observe behavior. Receptionists froze. Her arrival spread through messaging channels within minutes. Even Alex's assistant stepped out of her office, whispering into an earpiece. I watched from level 42 as security escorted her upstairs. Her smile tight, gestures rehearsed. My pulse pounded in disbelief. She had turned my workplace into a stage again. By the time they reached the executive floor, people were craning for a glimpse. Greta was charm incarnate, shaking hands, mentioning collaboration with practiced ease. I received a message from Alex's office. Join us, 47.7. The same room where he'd shown me the video. The elevator ride felt longer this time, my reflection flickering with traces of the daughter she used to belittle. When the doors opened, the sound of her laughter already filled the air. Recognizable, theatrical, almost nostalgic. But now, instead of shrinking, I stood taller. This was no dining room. There were cameras, witnesses, consequences. Alex sat behind his desk, gaze steady, listening while Greta spun her story. It was a family misunderstanding, she insisted. That video doesn't show decades of love and guidance. He let her speak uninterrupted, hands clasped, expression glacial. When she finally paused, he gestured toward me. Ms. Hartman, he said, perhaps you'd like to clarify whether this misunderstanding hindered or motivated your work. My throat tightened, but words came easier than expected. It clarified everything, I said. It taught me what loyalty doesn't look like. A flicker of amusement touched Alex's eyes. Greta's composure faltered. The audience she'd tried to control wasn't responding. Silence flooded the room, the kind that rewrites hierarchies without a single raised voice. Greta turned to me, searching for the obedient version of her daughter. She found steel instead. You can't let strangers define our family, she hissed. Alec remained silent, observing. My reply was measured. You defined it long before strangers saw it. For once, she had no counterline. The air conditioner's hum filled the gap like applause withheld. Finally, Alec rose. I appreciate honesty, he said, gaze moving between us. In this company, transparency is performance. He extended his hand to Greta, polite yet final. Thank you for visiting. Our brand speaks for itself. The escort gestured toward the door. Greta walked out stiffly, chin high, but the room already felt lighter, as if her authority evaporated once exposed to logic. After she left, Alec turned toward the panoramic window. You stayed calm, he said without facing me. Good. People forget composure is currency. Then he added quietly, she didn't come for you. She came to test boundaries. You just taught her where they are. I couldn't tell if it was compliment or analysis. Either way, it settled in me like closure translated into corporate language. When I left the office, the hallway buzzed, rumors moving like wind. Someone had filmed part of the encounter through reflective glass. Snippets leaked online before evening. The internet adored poetic symmetry. Headlines read, Mother who mocked daughter faces CEO. I didn't share or comment. My silence was already trending. That weekend, Greta finally stopped calling. Instead, she posted a vague message online about betrayal within families and truth manipulated for publicity. Comments roasted her performative grief. Former friends distanced themselves. Her social gravity collapsed quietly while I spent Saturday night finishing a presentation draft. Success rarely roared. It whispered through consistent output while others screamed. Yet 2 words from Alex's earlier statement echoed in my mind. Transparency is performance. Maybe that was his philosophy. But for me, transparency had always been survival. I wasn't trying to perform. I was documenting a rebirth in real time. And this time, the audience chose truth over her tone. On Monday, Alec called me in again, but not alone. HR, communications, and legal were present. The clip of my confrontation had now surpassed 5 million views. We will manage narrative control, the PR lead said, but Alec raised a hand. We're not hiding authenticity. Then, turning to the group, effective immediately, Sable Hartman acts as senior operations advisor during this transition phase. The room froze. I blinked, unsure whether to react. Greta's ghost seemed to evaporate at that sentence. Titles had never mattered to me, yet hearing it spoken aloud, with witnesses, rewired every humiliation she'd orchestrated. Power exchanged hands silently, documented in calm fonts across internal memos. As word spread through the building, every elevator conversation carried fragments of my name. Some people congratulated without warmth, others with genuine awe. I accepted none of it personally. They were applauding a symbol, not a person. Still, walking back to my floor, I allowed one private moment at the mirrored wall. A quiet smile. The cycle was complete. Greta's laughter had birthed the narrative, but Alex's logic had claimed it. Somewhere out there, she must have been watching the headlines accumulate, realizing control was a myth and resilience, the real inheritance. Little did she know that the story wasn't done. It was only recalibrating for the next broadcast. Has your mom ever laughed at your dreams? Like if yes, plus tell me below. The title Senior Operations Advisor changed more than my signature. It altered the choreography of the entire floor. Conversations paused when I entered. Emails came sharpened with politeness. Even my chair seemed to carry weight. Yet behind the respectful smiles flowed another current. Curiosity, envy, distrust. At Technova, everyone worshipped the algorithm of merit, but secretly resented the ones it rewarded. Alex's logic had elevated me overnight. To some, that was strategy. To others, scandal. I learned quickly that corporate affection is conditional, a handshake that waits for witnesses. My new office overlooked Brasilia's skyline like a slow pulse of light, each building reflecting ambition back at itself. Greta would have loved the view, though she could never earn it. I kept her out of my thoughts, or tried to. Week 5 arrived with colder air and new responsibilities. Alec included me in upper-level briefings, where ambitions clashed quietly behind immaculate presentations. I studied everything: posture, pauses, how he made silence do half his speaking. During one session, he leaned toward me and murmured, "Watch who adapts and who disguises." That line became my private compass. Patterns emerged quickly: people lobbying, gossiping, forming alliances disguised as mentorship. Yet Alec ignored noise entirely. He evaluated output. Our strategies restructured 2 divisions in under a week. Productivity soared, morale frayed. And through it all, the clip of Greta and me still lived online like a ghost that refused to die, feeding every conversation that mentioned my name. By mid-month, external media caught scent of a narrative revival. From ridiculed daughter to rising executive, investors loved resilient slogans. The board requested to feature me in a publicity campaign. I refused, politely but firmly. Alec approved without question. Perhaps he understood that mystery maintains authority. Still, rumors swirled. Some said Alec and I strategized in private more than policy allowed. Others that my silence was manipulation. I didn't correct them. Misinterpretation had always been my camouflage. Meanwhile, Greta's social sphere disintegrated further. Donors withdrew, invitations slowed. I saw a tabloid headline mention her name beside mine, phrased like tragedy. I didn't read it. Redemption stories rarely mention the cost for the defeated. Inside Technova, power moved invisibly, but left residue. People started adopting my methods, writing shorter reports, observing longer, speaking last. The culture was shifting toward precision and restraint. Alec noticed. During a quarterly review, he simply said, "In leadership, tone is infrastructure." I understood immediately. Authority isn't volume, it's timbre. The quieter I became, the clearer everything sounded. Each night I logged off past midnight, overlooking the city's grid of lights while sipping burnt coffee. Below, cars traced thin lines of purpose through darkness, exactly like data through our systems. Greta used to claim I moved too slow. Now my pace defined efficiency benchmarks company-wide. Poetic justice, re-engineered through productivity metrics. But justice always draws shadow. One afternoon, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. Check internal reports before summer review. Someone rewriting your metrics. Attached spreadsheets glitched as I opened them, corrupted yet traceable. Someone inside was trying to discredit the improvements I'd implemented, claiming duplicated data. Corporate revenge isn't loud. It hides behind formulas and forged timestamps. I traced the edits backward till a familiar profile surfaced. Clara Dean, a senior manager known for networking more than results. She had once called me viral charity, and now she was erasing me algorithm by algorithm. For hours, I debated exposing her directly or letting the system catch her patterns organically. Alec's words echoed, "Read patterns." So I waited. Silence again, my strategy of choice. Days later, Alec called for a review meeting about data inconsistencies. Every manager attended. Clara presented her slideshow confidently until Alec interrupted. Strange, he said. This architecture resembles Sable's corrections. Her hands trembled slightly. He turned to me. Walk us through your original mapping. Calmly, I restored the corrupted sheet, column by column, exposing edits time-stamped under Clara's login. The tension cracked like glass under heat. When Alec dismissed the room, only his sentence lingered. Authenticity reveals itself in detail. Clara resigned that evening. The rumor mill shifted again, this time painting me as ruthless, calculated, untouchable. They weren't entirely wrong. Greta once told me quiet people never win. She just never survived long enough to watch one do it. Promotions followed turbulence like thunder trails lightning. I received lead authority over a cross-continental project, our most visible assignment yet. Alec's endorsement arrived via 2 words: deliver coherence. That was his way of saying, you've earned this. My name appeared on company newsletters, internal podcasts, even conference panels. Each mention felt surreal, but also clinical. I wondered if success could numb empathy, if efficiency devoured humanity the same way applause consumed humility. At home, I left lights off longer, learning to breathe in semi-darkness. The city hummed like circuitry, endless and indifferent. Somewhere beyond all that circuitry was Greta, watching, possibly realizing that control lost is dignity leased to time. On day 70 since my hiring, Alec announced an emergency leadership summit to celebrate transformation. The invitation bore a golden header, Global General Meeting, transparency as performance. I felt the phrase settle deep inside my chest. The entire company would attend via live broadcast. He hadn't shared agenda details with anyone. That alone stirred rumors louder than applause. Whispers suggested board restructuring, maybe a new vice presidency. Others feared layoffs. My team looked to me for cues, but I genuinely didn't know what awaited. All I knew was Alec's cryptic call the night before. Tomorrow, bring clarity. His tone was steady, deliberate, final. I recognized the cadence. Something irreversible was coming. That night, I dreamed in echoes of laughter and light. The chandelier from that family dinner refracted into holographic panels of corporate glass. Greta's face flickered in each one, fading the moment I touched it. I woke before dawn, heart hammering. The city was still dark, sky bruised with pre-morning blue. My reflection in the window looked foreign, calm, sharp, almost mechanical. Success had sculpted me into someone Greta couldn't imagine. As the sun rose, I whispered, "Whatever happens today, let it finish the song she started." Then I dressed in gray, the exact shade of Technova steel, and left without breakfast. The elevator counted each floor like a heartbeat. 1, 2, 3, until the doors opened to the future Alec was about to broadcast. By the time thousands of employees connected worldwide, screens flickering with anticipation, a static hush filled the main auditorium. Alec walked onto the stage, minimalist black suit, remote in hand. His presence gathered every gaze like magnetic alignment. "Today," he began, "we announce a shift in structure and in story." Behind him, a massive screen brightened. My name appeared briefly in the background metadata streak before vanishing. The crowd murmured, but Alec only paused, eyes calm, scanning the audience. My pulse synchronized with the hum of projectors. Somewhere, Greta would be watching this live stream, eyes fixed on the man who had turned her laughter into an empire's metaphor. What he revealed next would either crown me or dismantle everything we'd built in silence. The stage lights softened as Alec advanced toward the podium, a faint vibration of anticipation shaking even the digital stream delay. "Change," he said, voice resonant, "is measurable only when story and structure align." Behind him, images flashed. Graphs, milestones, faces of employees. My throat tightened. This was language designed for investors, yet something about his measured tone hinted at symmetry. He clicked the remote. The screen faded to Technova's logo. "Effective today," he continued. "A new operational framework begins under the direction of someone whose resilience has become a pillar of our identity." The silence sharpened into a blade. My breath stalled. The spotlight shifted. My photo appeared. Me seated at my desk, mid-work, unaware it had been captured. Director of Operations. Sable Hartman. My mother's laughter, that echo I'd lived with for decades, evaporated in a collective inhale from thousands of viewers. The applause that followed felt physical, tidal, undeniable. I didn't move at first. Alec turned toward me across the stage. No smile, just acknowledgement. Your story, he said, reminds us that perception is temporary, but precision lasts. People stood, cameras clicked. I walked forward slowly, past rows of stunned faces, each pair of eyes recalculating hierarchy in real time. The applause spread through digital feeds, looping across company intranets, news highlights, social media captions. Somewhere out there, Greta must have been watching. Maybe she'd thrown her phone, or maybe she'd smiled with denial so practiced it felt like control. Either way, she was witnessing something irreversible. Her narrative losing oxygen live, framed by corporate lighting and public validation. I accepted the microphone not out of triumph, but closure. Thank you, I said simply, words weighted by 2 years of silence. After the broadcast ended, chaos became choreography. Employees surrounded me with congratulations that smelled faintly of coffee and strategy. Alec moved through them untouched, aura intact, the architect who never performed gratitude publicly. When he reached me, he only said, "Deliver coherence, even now." I nodded. On the surface, the event was corporate perfection. Beneath, a tectonic shift none could see. An empire rewriting its mythology. News outlets flooded with headlines. Technova elevates viral employee to leadership. Humiliation turns into power play. PR called it the age of dignified resilience. I recognized irony wrapped in reverence. In the quiet of the backstage corridor, I finally exhaled. My reflection in a monitor caught tears balanced in my eyes, but not falling. Strength sometimes looked like stillness. Greta called that night. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity triumphed over peace. The background noise of her house, muted television, a faucet dripping, looped through the line. "Sable," she said, voice small for the first time I could remember. I watched. Silence breathed between us. "They're saying you surpassed everyone, even me." The word fractured on her tongue. "You sound surprised," I replied quietly. "I told you once. I was designing something invisible." She exhaled shakily. "You made me look cruel." My voice softened, not from pity but conclusion. "You looked at me that way long before anyone saw." The line trembled. She ended the call. No goodbye. Only static. That emptiness felt less like victory and more like liberation measured in decibels. By the next week, invitations filled my inbox. Conferences, interviews, consultancy offers. Alec declined most on my behalf without discussing it. "Noise dilutes narrative," he explained. Instead, he scheduled a short documentary segment titled The Architecture of Grace. I agreed reluctantly. Filming took place inside head office glass, light reflecting off surfaces until I could barely distinguish where I ended and Technova began. The director asked, "What motivated you?" I answered, "Silence was my graduate degree." They laughed, thinking it metaphor. Alec didn't. He watched from behind the camera, arms folded, expression unreadable. Part of me suspected he recognized his own reflection in my restraint. Different routes, matching results. Professional alchemy, turning humiliation to infrastructure. Greta's decline became public quietly. Sponsors withdrew from her charity circuits. Gala invitations never resurfaced. Headlines stopped quoting her. My cousins, once her echo chamber, pivoted loyalties with opportunistic grace. Family dinners dissolved. Holiday messages arrived without her name attached. Somehow the ecosystem reorganized itself around absence, just as companies do after outdated leadership retires. I didn't celebrate. At nights, I scrolled through the old viral clip, both of us frozen in time, her laughter glittering cruel in crystal chandeliers. It no longer hurt. It simply existed as data, evidence of origin. Everyone who once mocked me was now metaphor for something bigger than family drama, an operational lesson in delayed consequences. 2 months later, Alec called me into his office near midnight. Brasilia glowed outside like circuitry under velvet sky. "They asked whether we plan to capitalize more on your image," he said, leaning back. I told them our product already is your image. He met my eyes. "Congratulations, Director." The title sounded heavier than before, carved from acknowledgement rather than optics. As I left, I paused at the glass wall outside his office. My reflection overlapped with the city beyond. One transparent, one solid, both real. Revenge had ended long ago. What remained was order. Greta's empire of gossip had fallen without confrontation, just exposure. Silence, once defensive armor, now functioned as architecture, load-bearing and gleaming. The formal letter of promotion arrived next morning. Ink, seal, protocol. I framed it not for vanity, but record. Every ascension needs documentation. Standing before my window, I realized vengeance hadn't reshaped me. It had refined me. The world equated power with noise, but power, I'd learned, is endurance disguised as calm. Somewhere inside the overlapping grids of data, Alec continued reading patterns. Greta, perhaps, still searched for an audience, but my story had exited their systems entirely. I turned off notifications, deleted old recordings, and stepped into daylight unarmed. Achievement had replaced defense. The city below shimmered like proof. Stories like mine rarely end with forgiveness. They end with equilibrium. I didn't seek apology anymore, only continuity. When new employees joined Technova, HR screened that original viral video as a case study in public resilience. Every time my younger self appeared frozen under ridicule, I almost whispered through the silence, "Wait 3 weeks. Justice arrives on schedule." I stayed to the end each viewing, remembering the scent of rosemary from that dinner long ago. Memory turned gentle, not sharp. The circle was complete, not closed, but calibrated. Which family silence hurt you most? Comment plus subscribe for weekly comebacks.